we keep them at minus 80 degrees Celsius.
Microbiologist Patrick McGann leads a research team at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, where they comb through samples sent from hospitals around the country looking for signs of dangerous superbugs. In May 2016, there was a bombshell. One of the most feared bacteria first discovered in China nearly 2 years earlier turned up in the U.S. It was McGann's lab that found it.
I think I used an expletive when I responded back immediately. Are you serious?
From the street musicians wailing out jazz to the fern-covered balconies of the French Quarter, New Orleans is the place where America lets the good times roll. One of the best ways to see the Big Easy is on foot, if you dare. What message does that send to pedestrians?
Take your chances.
Louisiana's shrimp industry has been a family affair for more than a century.
How important is the shrimping business to you personally?
It's everything to me.
The U.S. has become a massive importer. About 94% of the shrimp we eat comes from abroad. There's no getting around it. The U.S. shrimping industry is dying.
There's no way we can survive this the way it's going. We can't make it where the price is at now.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. Since penicillin was discovered nearly 90 years ago, almost every bacteria is becoming resistant to the antibiotic designed to treat it. So-called superbugs are a growing threat. Germs so strong, they're immune to most or all antibiotics known to man. In May of last year, Army researchers were alarmed to discover a new breed of superbug brought into the U.S. from overseas. Today, we look at the risks of superbugs and what the government is and isn't doing about it.
My mom was like this full of life person. She volunteered at the senior center every day. She was very independent.
Debbie Smoody took her mom Elsie to a Pennsylvania hospital in 2015 for a simple outpatient procedure.
This picture right here was the day after the procedure.
The procedure didn't identify any medical issues, but afterward, Elsie went downhill fast. It turns out she'd been infected by the hospital equipment, according to her doctor.
He said that she contracted this bacteria. It was probably from a scope that was not properly cleaned. He also told me that the bacteria that she had was resistant to just about any kind of antibiotic there was, and the chance of her surviving was pretty slim.
That's pretty shocking.
It was pretty shocking. She's like, I'm dying, do I have cancer? And I said, you don't have cancer. You have this bacteria. We don't know. I said, it's not good. And I told her, there's not antibiotics that really can get you better, but they're gonna try.
Nothing worked. In a matter of weeks, Elsie was gone.
That picture right there is probably the day that she passed away or the day before that she passed away.
What is it you think people should be concerned about?
Superbugs, which are antibiotic-resistant bacteria, are the greatest infection threat in our country right now.
Congressman Tim Murphy heads a congressional subcommittee that's looking into the emerging superbug threat.
Far more people die of infections that can't be treated than people die of AIDS. The other thing about this is it's getting worse. We don't have cures for this, and people better start paying attention.
There are many ways bacteria are becoming immune to the effects of modern medicine. Doctors may prescribe antibiotics too often. Patients may not finish their entire prescription, leaving behind stronger resistant bugs. Heavy antibiotic use in animals can lead to superbugs in meat and poultry, say critics, which can spread antibiotic immunity to other bacteria in people.
Antibiotic resistance is exploding in numbers.
Critics say a CDC awareness campaign that spent millions of tax dollars to discourage antibiotic overuse has done little to help.
Antibiotic resistance is one of the most serious health threats we face today.
And even if antibiotics in the U.S. were better controlled, there's the foreign factor. U.S. residents routinely cross the southern border to buy cheap antibiotics illegally without a prescription and carry them back into the U.S. We sent a producer to Tijuana, Mexico.
¿Cuánto es en dólar?
She had no problem finding pharmacies offering antibiotics for sale without a prescription, no questions asked.
No tengo receta, pero ¿me puedes vender ampicillina or erythromycin? Sí. Okay.
3 out of 4 pharmacies we visited didn't ask for a doctor's prescription.
Okay, pero no tengo receta. Okay.
We went to Mexico and found it easy to get antibiotics without a prescription.
It's easy to do. Then crossing over the border, a lot of our Border Patrol, they're looking for big parts of illegal drugs or the cocaine, the heroin, other things coming across the border. They're not looking for vials of some antibiotics. But it is a problem when you add up the many, many Americans or people who bring them across the border.
I would be concerned when I would hear stories like that because that's exactly how things get exacerbated.
Microbiologist Patrick McGann leads a research team at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research.
We keep them at minus 80 degrees Celsius. So
where they comb through samples sent from hospitals around the country looking for signs of dangerous superbugs.
So this is from during the Iraq War from 2003 to 2011.
Resistant bacteria caused severe problems for U.S. soldiers fighting in Iraq.
At the height of the war in 2006, there was like nearly 1 new infection every day, and they were extremely difficult to, we still have soldiers to this day that are recovering from some of the infections that they received.
In May 2016, there was a bombshell. One of the most feared bacteria, first discovered in China nearly 2 years earlier, turned up in the U.S.
Each colony represents 1 bacteria.
It was McGann's lab that found it.
I think I used an expletive when I responded back immediately. Are you serious?
The sample was from a 49-year-old woman hospitalized in Pennsylvania. Her urine contained bacteria with a gene called MCR1 that makes it resistant to our best antibiotic.
So this is the original MCR1 positive E. coli that came from that patient in Pennsylvania. Now that we have globalization, these bacteria will start to be imported into the United States from other countries, whether through food or through animals or just by people traveling, from country to country.
The Centers for Disease Control estimates 2 million Americans a year are hit by hard-to-kill, drug-resistant bacteria. 23,000 die. The actual number could be much higher. The CDC doesn't require hospitals to report superbug infections. Congressman Murphy wants mandatory reporting, but the idea doesn't have enough support to become law.
Hospitals don't want to be known as having an infection in them because people don't want to come, or they don't want to have their insurance rates raised or have lawsuits. Doctors don't want to chart it. The CDC doesn't adequately monitor these things. So all these things add up to we have a big mess.
We asked the CDC why it doesn't require hospitals to report their superbug outbreaks. In a statement, CDC told us it does monitor drug-resistant infections, but has no regulatory power to require reporting because, quote, each state develops its own mandates. The agency says it is taking steps to improve the nation's capacity to detect, respond, and prevent antibiotic-resistant infections. Debbie Smoody has learned a lot about superbugs since her mother's death. She thinks hospitals should be required to report them and warn patients of any outbreaks before they're treated.
To see her go from that to what she became in like a month's time, it blows my mind to this day. Like, I still can't even believe that it all happened.
In 2015, the Obama administration released a national action plan for better monitoring and nearly doubled requests for funding to fight antibiotic resistance to more than $1.2 billion. Ahead on Full Measure, down in the Big Easy, you can party all night, but you better watch your step on the streets of New Orleans. New Orleans is one of America's favorite tourist cities. Millions of people travel there every year and spend hundreds of millions of dollars boosting the economy. The city's history is part of the charm. But Full Measure correspondent Josie Sturman visited the Big Easy and discovered some historic policies may be putting people at risk.
From the street musicians wailing out jazz to the fern-covered balconies of the French Quarter, New Orleans is the place where America lets the good times roll. One of the best ways to see the Big Easy is on foot. if you dare.
What message does that send to pedestrians?
Take your chances.
All over New Orleans, pedestrians are gambling, not in the city's casino, but on its streets. An audit released last October discovered only 62 out of the city's 463 intersections have a pedestrian crossing signal. That simple white light that tells you when it's safe to walk. That's only 13% of crossings. Bigger cities with even more intersections, places like Memphis, Tampa, and Miami, have signals at more than 80% of their crossings.
It's more like the exception rather than the rule. When you see a pedestrian light, you're surprised to see a pedestrian light, whereas in other major cities, they're pretty much on every corner.
Becky Mowbray is with the New Orleans Inspector General's office. It was their audit that showed the city of New Orleans was putting people at risk.
And you watch these people, what goes through your mind when they're in those intersections?
I worry about their safety.
In the past 3 years, 40 pedestrians have been killed in New Orleans. To compare with two cities of similar size, Cleveland had 11 pedestrian deaths in that time. Minneapolis had 6. New Orleans isn't unique, though, in its pedestrian problem. It sits with Tampa, New York, Atlanta, and 22 other cities on a federal government watch list.
The guy who hit me said he didn't see me.
Jolie Lemoyne was hit by a car in 2015 at this intersection near New Orleans City Park. Traffic comes from 13 lanes in 5 different directions here. You won't find a single pedestrian crossing light, though, just outlined crossing lanes that have faded with age.
Oh, I guess we can do this.
So you do that with some hesitation when you hit this intersection?
Absolutely. Well, you just don't know if someone's not using their blinker. How do you know if they're going to turn or not? It's not worth it. To me, it's not worth it anymore to take that risk. So it's a guessing game.
Lemoyne's guess landed her in rehab for 8 months with a serious hip injury. Now she's an advocate for pedestrian safety.
Just you hear the story over and over and over. It just seems like eventually something would resonate with lawmakers, and they would see, some of these key intersections where they could improve, the signage.
So why is New Orleans different? It all stems from a rule dating back at least 30 years that only allows crossings at intersections where traffic could be stopped in all directions.
This was an informal policy, an unwritten policy, so in large part it had never been questioned. And
no one raised the alarm to say this seems a bit ridiculous.
No one knew, I think, except for the people who actually were enforcing this unwritten policy.
Nadienne Van Dyke is the city's assistant inspector general. They're calling for New Orleans to move beyond its old ways, toward more science and less intuition, or what she describes as the gut calls of engineers.
It is not the recommended method. It is absolutely not what one would hope for.
Other cities are using modern methods to protect pedestrians, analyzing data and highlighting the problem. New York and D.C. both adopted a progressive program called Vision Zero, aimed at eliminating deaths.
If New York looks at it as a design flaw to have accidents like this, how does New Orleans look at it?
I think they don't.
New Orleans has only discussed Vision Zero. Last spring, the city did begin a project adding countdown timers to some crossing signals. The Federal Highway Administration found they could cut the number of accidents involving pedestrians by 25%. But many of those signals are still covered in burlap bags, and only 44 spots in the city will get that upgrade.
How many of us are going to have to die before someone decides that, okay, enough is enough and we're going to do something?
Roxy Hamstad is both blind and deaf. She says her service dog saved her life as she tried to cross a street without a signal. Even with upgrades, there are no plans for crosswalk signals in New Orleans with sound or vibration to alert the disabled.
This is important. These are people's lives. This is people's livelihood. We are taxpayers. We deserve equal treatment.
In New Orleans, I'm Josie Sturman for Full Measure.
Josie mentioned the Vision Zero initiative, which is currently underway in 10 U.S. cities, including New York, L.A., and here in Washington, D.C. The goal of the program is to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries by lowering speed limits and redesigning city streets and intersections. Coming up on Full Measure, we stay in Louisiana and head to the bayou, where the catch is good, but the fishing industry is struggling. You You may not think much about how seafood gets to your plate, but the question of who's catching it and where is actually at the center of a global controversy. To understand why, we head south to the Louisiana Bayou. It's where an industry that survived Hurricane Katrina and the BP oil spill is finding itself threatened with extinction by foreign competition. These fishermen could be shrimpers lost, and theirs could be a lesson for us all.
Today we're going shrimping in Venice, Louisiana. A.C. Cooper is our guide.
How important is the shrimping business to you personally?
It's everything to me. You know, my family does it. My dad's 80 years old. He still fishes, and my two boys is into the business, and my daughter, she's married a fisherman.
Louisiana's shrimp industry has been a family affair for more than a century.
While the men condition the boats, the women folk industriously tend their knitting. Down where Louisiana is neither land nor sea, the bayou dweller's home becomes the base of annual operations which keep Mom, Pop, and the kids busy as the dickens.
Venice is one of the South's shrimping capitals. Cooper's sons make 4 generations of fishermen.
Who's coming up here?
That's my son, my youngest one.
After dragging our nets in the Gulf of Mexico, we brought up an assortment of sea creatures, mostly shrimp. You'd think there'd be automatic job security today in the family business, considering America's appetite for shrimp. We each eat an average of 4 pounds per year. Shrimp is now more popular than tuna fish.
Were there good times in the last 20 years?
There was a good time. At the beginning, before they started coming in, look, we made a good living. We had to work hard, you know, because we had to push ourselves to go out here every day. We fight the elements. You know, we work hard to make a living. But we did good. My dad did good. He taught me well. We did good. Now my sons and all, they're starting to struggle now because of what's going on.
He's talking about foreign shrimp flooding the market from places like China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. The U.S. has become a massive importer of a resource we have right here at home. About 94% of the shrimp we eat comes from abroad, selling for a fraction of the price of the ones caught at home. There's no getting around it. The U.S. shrimping industry is dying.
There's no way we can survive this the way it's going. You know, we can't keep up our boats. We can't keep deckhands because nobody wants to work because they're not making any money. We can't make it where the price is at now.
Take the haul from this boat, the Bakken. After 12 days out, it returned with more than 1.5 tons of shrimp. But after paying for fuel, ice, and 4 deckhands, the owner will clear just $166 for each day at sea. Hardly enough to keep the boat running, let alone help pay the bills in the off-season. Robert Wynn and his son face the same harsh reality. Wynn came to the U.S. as a refugee from Vietnam and ended up in Louisiana in 1985. He became so prosperous as a shrimper that by the mid-90s he owned his own dock, a big boat, and had 9 employees. Over a seafood lunch at his home a few miles from the dock, he shows pictures of how his family weathered Hurricane Katrina. Cheap imports flooding the market are today's threat. As shrimp prices have fallen, Wynn has sold his dock, downsized his boat, and now relies on his son to be his deckhand.
Shrimp, it's not like before. Every year it going down.
Foreign competition could mean the death of a lot of family businesses. So why does foreign shrimp cost so much less? Other countries may use cheaper methods banned in the U.S. In Thailand, some seafood farmers recently got caught using slave labor. Videos posted on the internet appear to show images of foreign workers injecting gelatin into shrimp to make it plumper.
Our government don't allow us to put anything in it, but yet they can test it, and they only test 1% that comes into this country.
He's right. The FDA is responsible for the safety of imported shrimp, but tests only 1% of imports each year. Last October, the FDA issued an import alert warning about shrimp from China, saying its use of unapproved antibiotics or chemicals raises significant public health concerns. Beyond the health concerns, Cooper says it's hard not to think of shrimping as another American industry that could be lost to foreign competition.
Do you see this as a reflection of anything else going on in the country?
Your farmers has been in generation after generation, the steel workers. We're going to be the same way, just like these guys.
He thinks the only thing that can save the shrimpers is for our government to step in and limit imports.
Pull it back, put a cap on it. We know we're going to have imports in this country. You know, we're not going to stop it, and we don't expect them to stop it. But we do expect them to hold it back and up to where we can make a living.
Our trip was just a few hours, but shrimpers routinely work 15-hour-plus days during the season. Cooper says he'll be lucky to get 60 cents a pound for the small brown shrimp we caught.
How much is this worth?
Probably about $120 for 200 pounds. It's not much. We work hard for our way of life. It's a way of life. It's not something that we just pop up and say that we're going to do. It's something that's been going generation after generation after generation. We just want the government to listen to us a little bit and help us out here. Don't put us to the brink of where we're broke and out of business. And that's where we're at this point in time. We're on the verge of out of business.
One potential win for American shrimpers could be the administration of Donald Trump. As he promised on the campaign trail, he's pulled the U.S. out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade deal that some said would have further opened the doors to more unsafe foreign shrimp. Ahead, a look at some of the stories we'll be covering on the next Full Measure. Next week on Full Measure, the unfinished business from the 2008 financial crisis. Big banks have paid tens of billions of dollars to settle state and federal fraud investigations, yet not one top bank executive was prosecuted.
Citigroup played a major role in crashing the U.S. market. It ended up getting a $45 billion taxpayer bailout to survive and eventually paid $7 billion to settle federal and state complaints. But to this day, the Justice Department hasn't charged any top bank executive with a crime. This is the story of how systems intended to hold people accountable failed, and Bowen claims even helped cover for them.
Not much has happened in terms of, from what I can see, to the actual people at Citigroup who were allegedly responsible for this behavior.
I think that would be very accurate.
The immaculate corruption next week on Full Measure. That's all for this week. Thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable.